Tim initially said CASA responsibilities. It's not really about CASA responsibilities, it's about what goes on in these circumstances. And I'm talking about circumstances where someone might do the wrong thing by getting stuck in cloud. Someone might do the wrong thing by being reported going into cloud. Someone might do the wrong thing by ATC helping them out getting down through cloud or something like that. It does happen. So I'm going to give you the CASA position on what this means. We all know there's rules about flying in cloud, and that's it there for those of you who don't know. So the car, which is the head of power, says CASA can notify the distances from cloud in AIP or no chance. What CASA chooses to do is to put it in the AIP, and I've just got a few extracts, just a couple. And this is the VMC criteria for Class C, and it gives you the viz and the distances from cloud, horizontal and vertical. The next slide is in Class G, and there's a whole lot of subject to items there which I won't bore you with, because you being commercial pilots, or most of you, should know all this from air law. And if you don't know it, go and read it tomorrow. It's not rocket science. But look, we can stick rules out there, like there's plenty of rules out there. Speeding, 100 kilometres. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. People bust those daily. Well, why do we bust them? Because any one of those could kill you. Texting while driving, driving while drunk or under the influence of drugs, or speeding at the wrong place, and flying in a cloud can all kill you. Yet, as humans, we continue to do that, which is bizarre. If we were aliens looking down, we'd say, that's pretty strange. Why do we do that? There's a whole lot of reasons why. I won't go into that now. You know, peer group pressure, I'll just have another drink. Oh, come on, have another drink before you go, you'll be right. Oh, look, the cloud's not that bad, I'll just keep going, I'll get through it in a minute. No problem, I've done it before. What CASA and the industry need to do is to work out why these things happen, and why we keep doing that sort of stuff, and establish some strategies, and that's what we're talking about. But let's move on to what happens if you do find yourself having to bust one of these rules. We have a regulatory philosophy. It's up on our website. I'll give you a chance to read it, but if you don't really want to read it, I'll just paraphrase the bits that are important. We've got a just culture, and it says, people aren't punished for actions, omissions or decisions taken within that are commensurate with their experience, qualifications and training. So if you really didn't know it, and you really acted on the fact that you didn't know that, because you weren't experienced enough, we didn't have training to know that, we do not take action. But there's a downside to that, of course, and I haven't highlighted that, but if you're negligent, reckless or willful, well, we might do something. Now, this is the same of any regulator. If you make a mistake on your tax return, you're likely to just get a nasty letter. If you do it repeatedly for a lot of money, they're likely to take action. Same with us. Basically, it's not native. The next thing is, when we do take something, we adopt an approach that is encouragement of training and education with a view to remedying identified shortcomings and correcting things, which is what we're doing now. So our first action is to educate and train. We don't immediately reach for the pad and write you out a fine. This doesn't happen. Okay, so let's go back a bit. So we'll go through what happens if we get a report of someone flying a VFR aircraft into IMC without an instrument rating. Fortunately, we're getting that sort of report because we're not getting it from ATSB, because if we're getting it from ATSB, you've probably crashed. The good thing is you're still alive, because we're getting reports saying that pilot did this on this day, and they're living to tell the tale. But you've broken the rule. So we've got to find out why. Now, in my 9 or so years with CASA, I've never heard of anyone, of CASA fining anyone, or giving them any licence sanction, or giving them any other grief, apart from talking to them, when such things have happened. When ATC have reported people to us for flying in cloud and stuff like that, when ATC have had a report go through the system to say someone entered cloud and are a VFR pilot, I've never heard of CASA ever hunting those people down and fining them. I don't believe it's ever happened. If they've done it 20 times in 2 weeks, probably yeah. But if they did it once, it's unlikely to ever go anywhere near that. So what does happen? Well, let's have a look at an incident. Let's assume we get an incident report coming through our system. So the first thing we would probably do is try and work out how it happened. And this is a typical pathway. Those of you who know the reason model will know Swiss cheese. And what we're talking about here, I'm just going to highlight a very brief couple of things that could combine, as Cameron was saying, weather and. We're going to do what the ands might have been. Inadequate planning. I did that. Fatigue could be an issue. Get homeitis. Trevor was talking about that. Those people wanting to get home. Some poor decision making. Didn't turn around at the right time. Or didn't go back. Didn't divert. The others, there's some of the others. Didn't happen to have an IFR rating. And there's that bad weather sneaking in. They all combined to produce the IMC encounter. In this instance, let's assume that the pilot, even after having all this go wrong, had attended one of Cameron's upset recovery training sessions and had a decent set of IFR skills, even though they didn't have a rating, and that they were high enough above the ground that when they popped out of the bottom of the cloud, they went, oop, all okay, and didn't overstress the aircraft. All okay. That's when we get to talk to the pilot and maybe the operator if it's an AOC operation. How did all this happen? We know pretty well how this happens, and we can talk about that. It just happens. There's nothing you can do about it. But all this took the aircraft to the weather. The weather didn't come at you. And Trevor sitting there in Lake Avella, the weather came to him then, but he was in the air. Every other time, you end up going to the weather. So what we need to discover is why that took place. So what we do is we get a pilot. Tell us what happened. Tell us why. What reasons were there possibly for you to not have enough time to flight plan and maybe not reading the forecast? Were you fatigued? Were those people wanting to get home, or was that operation really commercially important that meant that you could toss a few things out the window? And when you were faced with the weather coming up in front of you, what were you thinking? What were your plans? Did you have a plan? Did you have a way out? Did you even think of turning back? Did you even think about not departing? We do this in a way to discover what this individual did or didn't do on that day. Because we could learn something from something they say that we could tell you. That person is unlikely to do that again. But that's just one individual. There's 117 in this room. This is one way we could get information that you may not have otherwise known and pass it on to you. Or put it in our handout, or do whatever we can, or make a video, or do something. So that's what we do. We look at all that stuff and we talk to the pilot about what could have been done better. If there's operator influences in there, like excessive commercial pressures, like not giving people enough time to flight plan, like a whole lot of things, we can take that up with the operator, but that's a different thing. As far as a pilot's concerned, none of that leads to a sanction. If they go and do it 10 times, it probably will. That's our role, that's what we do. Before I finish, I'm just going to move on to a little scenario to deal with this issue of commercial pressure, because it's obviously important in any aviation enterprise. We're dealing with expensive equipment with lots of money invested. It doesn't earn any money on the ground. The people don't pay when they're sitting on the ground. So this is something I learned quite a long time ago. And the hazard here is commercial pressure. And this is a typical example of how it was mitigated in these instances. Trevor gave us a good example of how it happened here in the top end. This is a slightly larger and older example, but you'll get the idea. I had a mentor. He was a Qantas director. He was the chief executive of a big flying school that I ran in Cessnock. He was a part-time director of the school. His Qantas seniority number was 6 or 7, so he was an old and bold dude. And he was rostered for command of QF1, which is the flagship service from London to Sydney. And they were in London. The flight used to leave at a specific time every day. Unbeknownst to the crew, operations moved the flight an hour early. The crew were in a hotel. All the flight attendants, everyone's in the same hotel. London operations send the crew bus to the hotel, expecting the crew to be outside in their uniforms, like they all sit outside in the hotel, they're ready to go. No crew. Ring, ring. Where? No one to be found. Find the base manager who comes to the hotel, goes up and knocks on the captain's door. Captain opens the door, he's sort of in his jammies or whatever he does, cleaning, he's not ready yet, because it's an hour early. Oh, Captain, you're late. No, I'm not. You're late. This is when I was meant to be. Oh, they changed the time. You've got to get going. You've got to get going right now. Oh, okay. Why? Well, we've got 400 people sitting at the airport waiting to get on QF1 to fly to Australia. No, that's not going to happen, he says. You're going to go back to the airport and you're going to tell traffic that the aircraft will depart 1 hour late. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. It's 400 people. Princess Di is travelling to Australia on QF1 today. We can't do that. My mentor says, yes, you can, and make sure you tell her as well. Sounds simplistic, but you can imagine the chaos that would cause. As it was related to me, he said, there's absolutely no reason in the world why we should short-circuit the 1 hour preparation time we need after we drive an hour to the airport, an hour preparation to get that aircraft, an analogue 747 and all its bits and pieces, ready to go. So I had a few slides here. I've got to go and do flight planning. I've got to do checklists, and in Qantas 747 Classics there's millions of them. The people are standing in the terminal. So the pressure is enormous. But this person had the presence of mind and probably the experience to say, no, we're not doing that. We are not going early. I'm not going to short circuit that. Now, this may seem an example that's quite above what the level of aviation new people may be engaged in, but the principle is exactly the same. If someone is telling you you've got to depart in 15 minutes and you need half an hour or 45 minutes, you need to develop a strategy in your circumstance to deal with that. Because if you don't, that inadequate planning will be up there as one of those latent factors that we may have to talk to you about down here, or worse, it might be ATSB writing the report for your relatives because you didn't have the time to do the plan properly. Each of you is in a different working situation with a different company, with a different mindset, with a different commercial attitude. but you're in charge of when you turn the key or press the button. So it's up to you to do that bit, at least, properly. So find a way. We can help. Find a way. And it will block that Swiss cheese pathway in your circumstance. Okay? Thanks for listening.